welcome to the third episode of Pouring Out My Thoughts, hosted by me, HJ, where I just pour out all of the thoughts that I have about anything, whether that is movies or certain social issues or personal experiences or whatever that is that I want to talk about for that week. For this week, I'm talking about this idea of outgrowing your parents. Um, it kind of came to me over the course of the past few weeks. I've been having conversation with my mom and my husband and my mother-in-law, and when I say outgrowing your parents, I don't mean, um, I guess in that specifically. I guess let me see. The best way I can explain it is outgrowing being parented, right? So, I was talking to my husband maybe about a week or two ago, and we were discussing like how our parents are dealing with this new stage of life that we have right now. We're recently married, we have a son, we bought our home, we're the new adults, right? And going through life how we see fit, right? We have our issues, but they still are concerned for us, want to make sure we're okay, as parents would do, right? So I was talking to him and I was telling him that my mother had said something to me several months ago that kind of stuck with me. And it was that I have to learn, I have to stop seeing myself as her child, and she has to stop seeing me as her child. And she didn't mean that literally, like, I'm always going to be your child, she's always going to be my mom. She meant it as both of us have to see me as an adult with my own life, not as someone who still needs to be raised, you know? Um, and as I was talking to my husband, I was given a piece of wisdom from God. Like it just came out of nowhere. And I gave it to him in a form of a metaphor, which is typically how I get my little bits of wisdom and thoughts and how I explain a lot of things. Um, and here was the analogy or the metaphor, whatever you want to call it. Um, so when you're young, say your parent is teaching you how to ride a bike, right? You're on your bike, so say the training wheels have just been taken off and they're holding the back of the bike, the seat, right? Just to make sure that you don't fall. They're showing you how to steer, how to pedal. If it tilts a little bit, they're showing you how to correct it. But they're right there. They're holding on to the seat. And that's how I view childhood, right? The earlier years. Just they're there to guide you, they're showing you how to do things, telling you what to do, what not to do, how to get the ball rolling. That's childhood. And then they let go of the seat a little bit. So you'll start to tilt on your own, but they're hoping that you'll learn how to fix yourself. But they're right there just in case you actually just fall over. And that's the teen years. You're starting to learn a bit more about yourself. You're starting to decide what you like, what you don't like, the type of people you want to talk to, the all kinds of things. Those are your teen years, and at that point, they're right next to the bike, but they're no longer holding on. And as you get older in your teen years, you're starting to back up a little bit. They're walking away from the bike to give you a little bit more space to control the bike how you want. And then finally, they're on the sidelines. They're just watching you ride the bike. If you start to tilt on your own, it's up to you to kind of fix it. But if you just flat out fall over, they can see you and you can call them over to come help you. Like, hey, I fell over. I need some help. And that's your adult life. And I see it as parents are not, when we become adults, they're no longer raising us. Their purpose at that point is to support and guide you, not to raise you, not to tell you what to do, what not to do, how to live your life. At that point, they've already done that. Your parents' job at that point is to support and guide you when you need that support and that guidance. And so it's a transition that is very difficult on both sides for the child who wants that freedom and stuff, but is still trying to figure out, like, oh, I've never done this before. I've never been an adult before. I don't know how to live by myself. I don't know how to fully think about these things. I'm still trying to figure out how to do my taxes. What does that even mean? and I don't know how to deal with how to go through certain relationships, and just all that stuff is it's new, but you have to learn how to do it. You have to learn how to ride that bike by yourself, unassisted. And it's hard on your parents because they're so used to doing that, especially if you're the oldest child and they've never had to do it before. Like for me, I'm the oldest child. I have two other siblings. I have two younger siblings. um and so I'm the first one that's out of the house, that's out of the nest. And so this is, I know it's a very difficult thing for my mom to transition into. Um, and for my husband, he's an only child. So I know it's hard. I can understand that it'd be difficult for our parents to transition into this new phase where they're no longer having to raise children. They just have to be on the sidelines. They're witnesses now. Um, but that's not to say, like I said, they're there to support and to give guidance. Be able to They have to equally allow you to do those things that you want to do, but also still be able to, or be open to, you reaching a hand out and saying, "Hey, mom, I need help. Hey, daddy, I need help." Um, so you're not completely cutting them out or shutting them out, but just it's a new phase. It's a new step. And as I was thinking about this and talking to my husband about it, we started trying to identify where our parents are in relation to that analogy, the bike analogy. And I was saying that for my mom, I'm not going to talk about his parents, but for my mom, and I told her this, I was like, "Ma, even though you um, weren't holding on to the bike anymore and you were on the sidelines, you was over there hooping and hollering the whole time." And I mean that in that she, anytime I did something, it wasn't always, "Oh, are you sure you're gonna do that?" Or "You should probably do XYZ." Or my mom is like, the if you know me, I talk with my face a lot and I get it honest from my mother. So she talks with her face a lot, but she also talks with her tone and certain sounds and things that she makes. Um, that say a little bit more than she does sometimes. Um, and so if I told her I was making a decision, even if she didn't verbally say that she didn't agree with it or tell me that I need to do something else, her face would say it. And I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, seriously?" Um, but she, I, the intentions are great. The intentions are there, and I understand that. But it's also like, hey, I gotta breathe a little bit. I gotta do this on my own for a minute, you know. I'm glad that you want to help me. I'm glad that you don't want to. I appreciate that you don't want me to hurt or suffer. Um, but I can't breathe if you're constantly over me telling me X, Y, Z. Um, Specifically, one instance that I can think of where this kind of played out was a couple months ago. Actually, no, before my son was born, one of the things I talked about with my mom was the advice that pregnant mothers get all the time. Just a slew of different things like, don't eat this, don't sleep like this, when they get born, do this, use this diaper, use this bottle, use just all kinds of stuff. Some of it's foolishness, some of it's actually quality advice, but it's too much and it's overwhelming. And I had a customer who told me right after she had her baby, she was like, "Trust your gut." She was like, "Do what you feel is best for you and your baby." And I told my mom that. She was like, "Yeah, that's exactly right." Because no one else has to raise that child but you, and other than his father. But what's going to work for y'all is not going to work for everybody else. You do what's best for y'all. And we had talked about this, but I guess when he was actually here, she jumped back into that raising mode. Not raising him, but with me. Just kind of, it was overpowering. It was a little too much for me. To the point where I had to say something because she was making comments about certain things that I had decided to do or didn't decide to do. Um, because she had came down for my wedding, and at this point, my son was about 6 months old, 6 or 7 months old, and I was telling her, or she was telling me, um, certain things that I should be doing instead, or that she didn't understand why I was doing certain things, so it turned into a a little bit of a disagreement where I was getting some pushback on certain things that I wanted to do. So I no longer felt safe. Like I felt like I had to defend myself. Um like you told me to trust myself and I'm doing these things because it's what I feel like is right, but you give me all this pushback on it, and while I shouldn't care what you think, or what people think about what I decide to do, I value your opinion and I value your word. So it's kind of hard to. So I always feel like I have to defend myself. And I told her that. She was like, I don't want you to feel like you have to defend yourself. And I'm sorry. I'm gonna. Uh, basically, she said she's gonna step back for a while. Not a while, just to step back and allow me to make my decisions and do what I want for my son, right? Um, and not be um like a third party in when it comes to raising him. Um, but again, that's not to say that I don't want her opinions sometimes, or I don't want her advice, because there are definitely times where I've got scared that he acted a certain way, or um like one he just started my son just started randomly shaking his head out of nowhere. I'm like, why is he doing that? And it was concerning me. And it was just very small, like little twitches, at not a twitch, just a small little shake at first. Like he just shook his head like one, two, and then that was it. And then it got to the point where he just kept doing it for long periods of time. So I called my mom. I was like, what's going on? She's like, oh, that's normal. Kids just do that. They're experimenting with their bodies. It's not that big a deal. And it kind of comforted me. So there are still times where I'm gonna need her for things. But but like I said, I'm trying to make these decisions for myself. And when it comes to just our lives as adults, that's something that we have to do. And it's kind of hard, as I'm going to speak as the adult, the new adult, the baby adult. It's very hard to be in that position, because sometimes I'm just like, oh, somebody just tell me what to do, because I feel lost, I'm confused. And then on the other hand, I'm like, I don't really want to do anything y'all are telling me to do. It's why I moved so far away in the first place, because I got sick of doing what everybody wanted me to do. Um, it's very confusing because it's you want to do what you want, right? But some things just don't pan out, or um, you start feeling a little hopeless, or a little what's the word I'm looking for? You don't feel encouraged to do something, or whatever it is, and so you start to feel like you need a helping hand. Um, and my go-to is my mom. Outside of talking to my husband, so just trying to find that balance of are you are you really trying to, well no, yeah, just trying to find that balance between being a real adult. I say a real adult, being an actual adult, and still being a child, because not being a child, that's not the word, just receiving support and guidance, and not allowing myself to be parented, because um I'm an adult now. I have my own child that I have to parent. Um so I've reached that age where I have outgrown my parents, or outgrown being parented. I mean, granted, I reached that a couple years ago, but still even more so now, because I have a family of my own. And I think that um if you are also in this phase, I think the most difficult phase with that is that age, like 18 to 25, or I want to actually I'll push it up to 30, 18 to 30, because that's the beginning years, because technically adolescence is until about 25. You like your prefrontal cortex isn't finished developing until about 25. um So that period 18 to 30, it's a very interesting period because it's all new, right? The early 18 to about 22, 23, you're out of high school, you may have gone to college or out of college, you're probably you're out of your parents' home for the first time, or you're at least, if you are still staying with your parents, which I understand, you're experimenting a little bit more, talking to more people, starting to live your life for yourself. And then a little bit after that, maybe you have something established, maybe you don't, maybe you are still lost and trying to figure it out. And then I think the pressures that were put on us growing up, you're starting to feel the weight of that as an adult and trying to figure out how to handle those things. Um, it's very new. Um, and I wonder what the next few years are going to look like for me. Um, Especially as my son gets older and my husband and I end up being together for a little bit longer, just how that dynamic looks for both of us. Because even though I've lived on my own for a couple years, this is my first time in a home that I've owned before, where every rule was mine. Because the house that I lived in before, it was an apartment with my roommate, um, and our living situation was split, meaning like we had to come to a compromise on everything. And now, and luckily we did. We got along great. Love my old roommate. We're still friends to this day. Like, love her to pieces. Um, but now I am in my own home where the rules are kind of set by me and my husband. And yes, there are still compromises there, but now I get to choose the family traditions we have, or the schedules that we have, or the little things that we do and don't do. Um, the specifics on what kind of food and groceries and cleaning supplies that we buy. Like, I get to decide if we want pets in the house, or kind of TV we can watch, and not like it's all these little details are decided by myself and my husband. And when you come from living with your parents and being parented, all of those decisions were made for you. You just kind of had to go with it. Maybe you did live in a house that was a little bit more freeing, where you get to choose a little bit more things, but um none of the pressures were on you because you were being parented. You were being shown how to do those things, hopefully. Um, Thankfully, I was. And I didn't even think about this, say this, but even the more pressures of sustaining yourself now, um, thinking about how much things cost, like the cost of living is insane. I mean, I have to make sure my lights are on, make sure my water is on, make sure I pay rent or mortgage, make sure I pay for internet, make sure we have groceries, make sure we have cleaning supplies. Oh, the cat's out of litter, gotta make sure we have that. Oh, baby needs wipes, gotta make sure we have that. Gotta make sure we have light bulbs, gotta make sure that we change the air filter for our air conditioning, make sure we change um all kinds, like there's so many things that you have to think about now when you're no longer being parented, when all the rules are on you, when you have to decide the rules, when you have to decide the habits, when you have to decide um the traditions, the choices, when you have to decide everything. It's a lot of pressure. um and maybe I'm very curious to talk about this a little bit more with my mom, so I might have her on for an episode. um but I'm very curious. I actually also might have my husband on for another episode and see what he thinks and his thoughts. Um, this episode is a little bit shorter this week, but I just wanted to get that out. What do you think about outgrowing your parents? Do you feel like we're supposed to be parented forever? Do you feel like your parents raise you forever? Or better yet, if you don't feel like they're supposed to be done forever, when do you think the cutoff is, or that moment that they're supposed to switch from being right there in the I don't want to say in the trenches, but right there in it with you, and then move into the sidelines just to be supported and guided. Um, and You know what? I think, and I'm going to do a separate episode on what support and guidance from your parents actually look like. I'm curious to see what you think. What does support and guidance from your parents actually look like to you? Because I feel like that could be different for a lot of different people. Like even between me and my husband, that looks different. I'm not the type. I don't like unsolicited advice. I don't like it because um, a lot of times it comes from a place of not fully understanding or not even trying to get enough information to give said advice. Um, and also sometimes I'm just not in the place to receive it. Sometimes I'm just not there yet. So I would rather ask for it, or if you come to me, you can say, "Hey, can I make a suggestion, or can I offer some?" And then I can say yes, or I can say no. My husband, on the other hand, he doesn't really care. He'll take it, and he is still on the same side where it's like he doesn't have to go with it if he doesn't want to. Um, so yeah, what does support and guidance from your parents look like? Does it look like them helicoptering all over you all the time, or does that mean, or is it just they're on the sidelines just waiting for you to call them, or they call and check in on you? Or I'm very curious because I know it's different for everybody. So let me know down in the comments. Um, when do you feel like your parents are when do you feel like you're supposed to outgrow being parented, and what does support and guidance from your parents look like? Thank y'all so much for tuning in this week. I know it's a little bit shorter, um, but I enjoy doing these. So I will talk to you guys next week. Have a good day or good night whenever you're listening to this. Bye.